In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
So when I was doing my sermon preparation on this gospel, I came across a concept that I had never heard of before. And that concept is liminal space. Liminal, L-I-M-I-N-A-L. How many people know that word? Oh my goodness, two. One of which is Kevin, our brilliant college student. And Michael, right? No, who raised your hand? Michael. Okay, so, well, I didn't know, like the rest of you, and so here is what I found out about that phrase. Richard Rohr, who is a Franciscan friar, an inspirational speaker and author of inspirational books, had this to say about liminal space. It is when you have left the tried and true, but have not yet been able to replace it with anything else. It is when you are between your old comfort zone and any possible new answer. If you are not trained in how to hold anxiety, how to live with ambiguity, how to entrust and wait, you will run. Anything to flee this terrible cloud of unknowing. So, liminal space is that time period between something that is familiar to you and you are rooted in perhaps, and you're moving to something new, something different. Something that you aren't sure about what is going to be happening. And so it's that in-between space. And this past Thursday was Feast of the Ascension, which is a celebration of Jesus going back to the Father and leaving his disciples behind. Prior to Pentecost, which is the giving of the Holy Spirit. And so you can only imagine what their liminal space must have been like. That cloud of unknowing, that cloud of doubt, perhaps anxiety, in knowing that Jesus said he would come back, but when would that be? And how would that be? They had no idea. So for those days between his ascension and the return with the Holy Spirit and the outpouring of the Holy Spirit, for those disciples, it was liminal space. Leaving the comfort of Jesus and moving on to they did not know what. But knowing what he had taught them and knowing what their role was to be in this world, yet not really being empowered to do that. So the only thing that we know that they did do was that they hid in their room, right? They hid, which makes perfect sense. The Romans were out crucifying people and doing these terrible things, and so why not hide? And so for them, that liminal space was a time of great anxiety and fear. And obviously, despair and depression. So Jesus, being Jesus, said to the disciples, he gave them a lot of instructions when he was leaving them. So we start in the upper room with the Passover meal, and we have the teaching of Jesus about being a servant and love one another as I have loved you, and that great commandment of love and the institution of the Eucharist and all that going on. And that occurs in the chapter of John 13. And we have all kinds of things going on between chapter 13 and between chapter 17 where we end up this morning. And in the Bible, it is one discourse, one long session of teachings of Jesus. This morning, he switches into praying for the disciples. And that is what we're focused on today. Because we are in a similar space, this liminal space, this time of unknowing, this time of transition. As David said last week, St. A's is in transition. But we also know that there are many, many students on this campus who are in a liminal space right now. We have Liz Crosley and Kevin Burke with us, who are our, outstanding seniors that we celebrate with as they move on to graduation. But we think about their transition, and if you can remember in your own life if you went to college, or Happy Mother's Day, mothers. Do you remember being pregnant? And that time of ambiguity, that time of not knowing, that time of wondering, what will my life ever be like again? Good thing we didn't have the answer. However, this liminal space, this time of transition and moving from that which is comfortable to that which is unknown, is also a time where we can grow in great ways. And so Jesus, as the final part of this long discourse that the Gospel of John offers to us, and remember, this is coming from the Johannine community. This is the last of the Gospels that was written that were included in the New Testament. And this was a community that was very focused on the love of Jesus and how he loved those in the world and how he was teaching us to love others. And so the end of this great long discourse is this prayer that we heard him offer this morning. Because you see, Jesus knew that it would not be easy for the disciples. Certainly, it was not easy for him. And he was the Son of God. People didn't get it. People didn't know. People didn't understand. And so Jesus had to make that ultimate sacrifice for us by dying on the cross. But knowing that he was moving towards that, this prayer was given for the disciples then and for the disciples to move through their transition into the world. And he was also, I believe, praying for us, the followers of him today. And so we take great comfort in this prayer. And listen to some of the words that he said. Holy Father, protect them in your name that you have given me, so that they may be one as we are one. And this idea of protection, this idea of security, this idea of knowing that we are rooted in the love of Jesus, we are rooted in that ultimate sacrifice that he made for us, and that we are protected by the Trinity. We are protected by not only Jesus who died for us and went to heaven, and God who is the creator of us, but the Holy Spirit who came and empowered us. Through our baptism, we are empowered and we are protected by the Trinity. He goes on to say, but now I am coming to you, and I speak these things in the world so that they may have my joy made complete in themselves. That they may have my joy made complete in themselves. I came to understand this concept of joy rather late in my life. Not late in my life. I'm not really that old yet, you know. However, we're moving in that transition, in that liminal space all the time. But I came to understand in my own recovery what this word joy means. And I have been working actually with my spiritual director lately in trying to understand what joy is. And I've been taking a poll of people along the way, like, what's joy mean to you? And I've come to understand for myself that joy is not an emotion. Happiness is an emotion. Happiness is something that happens to me when things go my way, when I get what I want, when I am feeling healthy and vital and having a good time. That's happiness. But this sense of joy is something that for me is in the spiritual realm. It is something that comes from deep within me. It doesn't come from my mind. It feels like it comes from my heart. Like my heart wants to burst when I am connected and feeling the joy that I have experienced in my life. And I feel joy this morning. I feel joy every time I walk into this place and I see this loving community who are part of the Jesus movement of the Episcopal Church. I just happened to listen to Bishop Curry again, who, by the way, is preaching at the royal wedding. Yay. So be watching that next Saturday. But that reminder that this beloved community of ours, this community that is loving and liberating and life-giving, that's where our joy comes from. Our joy comes from, as Jesus says in this prayer, living in the truth. And the truth is what Jesus shared with us. The truth is all the teachings of love your neighbor as yourself. Get out of your own way. Give to others. Because it is in the giving where we find the joy. It is in the knowing that we were given to by Jesus that we find the joy. That we are loved and that we are able to love others. That is the truth. And he goes on to say, I am not asking you to take them out of the world, but I ask you, here's this word again, to protect them from the evil one. He is not asking us to be separated and hidden within the walls of this church. We know that. Because this Jesus movement that we are all part of has us going out the doors, right, onto this campus, finding Liz, Kevin, and all the other students, finding the faculty, finding the staff, finding the community around us, finding the larger world around us, where we can make a difference. But making that difference, as Jesus did in his world, sometimes causes grief. It causes an upheaval. It causes us rubbing the wrong way against our neighbors, right? Because we're challenging them to what? To justice, to think about truth, to think about other than themselves. And when people who are not walking in the way or encounter that kind of rhetoric or that kind of behavior, they can get a little bit testy, right? If not angry at us. And so Jesus is saying to us and praying to the Father to protect us as we go into the world, that we will continue to be part of the world, because that is where he is sending us. How nice it would have been for him to say, go find St. A's, close the doors, lock them, and just have a party. Have, all these good times and enjoy it, and because you know me, that's where it stops. But that's not what it is. We come here to be one as he prayed for, so that we can go out strengthened, that we can go out empowered, that we can go out with love into the community. He ends with, sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. Your word is truth. This idea of sanctification came to me during a Cursillo weekend. How many Cursillistas are there? So you remember prevenient grace and sanctifying grace. And prevenient grace is the grace that goes before us, and sanctifying grace is the grace that helps to transform our lives into being holy. The root word being sanctus, holy. And so it's by living and learning and being with Jesus and his teachings that we become sanctified. That we change, we are transformed into people of his truth. And then he says, as you have sent me into the world, so have I sent them into the world. That's what it's all about. And so Kevin and Liz, we have treasured our time with you. We have embraced you, we have loved you, and we have received love back. And as you go out into the world, as you go through this liminal space of not knowing, know that not only did Jesus pray for you, but that we have prayed for you as a community, we have embraced you, we have loved you, and we will continue to pray for you as you make this transition into wherever you go and whatever you do. And I am actually saying these words this morning because next Sunday Liz graduates. Kevin will be with us for 3 more months over the summer as he finishes a few things he has to do, but he walks next week, he graduates. And Ann and I will be out of town next week. So this is not my farewell discourse because I'm not Jesus. However, I did want to say those words to you publicly, that you have become part of the fabric of our life in this place. And that as you go, we go with you. Because that's what Jesus is all about. And I just pray that you remain part of the Jesus movement, and that you too can be loving, liberating, and life-giving to those that you meet as you leave here. Amen.
Amen.